We're talking about marketing today. Marketing is the subject of this conversation. What makes for great marketing? Efficient marketing. God, I've got a lot of stories of clients and friends who've really struggled with expensive, inefficient marketing. Hopefully, we're going to share some things that make a difference in that. Hey, everybody. My name is Bill Gallagher, scaling coach and host of this Scaling Up Business podcast. Our show comes to you every week, a couple times, with something to do with growing your business and the leadership required to take you there. We help you get the strategy right, help you figure out the team and get them engaged, help you execute better, optimize your cash model, and survive, maybe even enjoy the process. I think it's possible. Suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. You'll find hundreds and hundreds of shows at scalingcoach.com or wherever you're listening, watching right now. We've got, of course, video feeds on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, like that. Well, actually, they're not, all the videos not on our website, but we're going to work on that soon. And then you'll find all the audio side wherever you get your audio podcasts, wherever you're listening right now. Like, subscribe, get notifications, that kind of thing. So you don't miss this show because it might be interesting. And of course, you can do us a big old favor and give us a review, comment, review, that kind of thing on whatever platform, especially the Apple. If you listen to the Apple podcast, go in their platform and give us an honest review, some comment, that kind of thing really helps with the platform to get us more attention, build our audience. All right. I'm joined now by Brandon McKee, who's in Alexandria, Virginia. And Brandon is now CEO of this Win Big Media company. And he has blended kind of an operational background with now work for a marketing firm. And I think that's a really interesting, useful perspective to have because it's not often a lot that we apply the rigor and the repeatability and the focus on results and profitability that you get with an operations background. So welcome to the show, Brandon.
Thank you for having me, Bill. Appreciate having me on.
So why don't you talk about how an operations guy gets into the world of marketing and how you found some passion before we get into some of the marketing stories that you've got to share with us.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't, I didn't wake up one day and, want to be a marketer. Right. And so it's very interesting. So really where I started, Bill, is I ultimately was in the fitness industry for about 12 years. And I worked with teams, building teams. I went down an HR route for a while to what I found is sales and human resources and how to motivate teams to move forward towards a goal was really important to me. And so I really dove down that rabbit hole, but I found myself in this seat, much like now our clients are in that seat of, we just tried everything marketing wise. And we did this whole, let me throw something against the wall and see if it sticks. It never stuck. And we went round and round and round. It's sales, it's marketing, it's their fault, right? And so I met Philip, who's the founder of Win Big Media, and the former CEO, and we really hit it off. I told him about my frustrations. He told me about the clients that they work with and how that's most of their frustrations too. And I got really passionate about the mission, and really that is to help business owners out there that don't see a way out of this marketing whirlwind merry-go-round, towards a better path to ROI and to actually getting results. So that's kind of the journey I went on, over the last 12, 13 years. Yeah.
That's great. That I think is so, I mentioned in the opening, but I've had so many companies that we've worked with and, they've all got something by the time they work with us. They've been through a couple rounds of financing. They're now like Series B or something like that, or they've bootstrapped for a while. They've got 100 people. And they have a vision for something much bigger. And then they try to invest in the marketing and they blow a lot of money sometimes on something that sounded good. It should work. It seems to work for somebody else. They got a good pitch. These people have great resumes. Look at those logos on their website. And then hundreds of thousands of dollars later, they're like, that didn't work at all. Like,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of traffic and not any nibbles and no conversions and that kind of thing. It just seems like again and again and again, I hear that story. Oh, we could do some good. You got to give it some time. And like, oh, do you?
Right.
How much time? Yeah. So I think it's a big need. And, these companies are huge. Facebook and Google in particular, the media outlets, the biggest right out there, they're making all kinds of money, whether you're actually converting and doing anything or not there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
yeah.
I was just going to say, Bill, yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. And the bigger part that we see and where we kind of, we're agnostic, right? We're media agnostic is what we like to say.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Google, you mentioned Facebook, all these big agencies receiving kickbacks or there's some agencies that only do Facebook advertising, right? And so, of course, they're going to tell you, you need to put your money into the platform that they happen to do marketing on, right? And so, we really just across the board media agnostic, traditional, digital, we don't care as long as it brings an ROI to our clients.
Yeah. So, well, let's share some stories. I always like to lead with stories. I think they help us to imagine things and begin to see different applications. So you've got a whole range that you shared with us in preparation for the show. You can tell any of them if you want to start off. Is there a favorite that you want to kick off with?
Yeah, my favorite, and it's probably very pertinent, I would say, to the times we're in, Bill, with are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? Is a recession coming? Is actually a national pest control company that we worked with. And, pest control, like a lot of home services businesses, tend to be cyclical in nature or, seasonal, right? And so in their off season, where we saw all the competitors around them starting to pull back, and some companies will even spend no marketing off season, which kind of blows my mind to this day. But it happens. And so what we did is we actually asked them, hey, let's keep things steady. Let's double down. And here's why, because what we do is build out a customer insights report as a company. And we're telling you where your customers are, what are their traits, what are their behaviors, what are the psychological drivers that are getting them to buy a product and hopefully buy your product, right? And so we found through what we call a digital footprint, kind of tracking them and their whereabouts, is that there were actually some off-season needs in their customer base, specific to rats and some other pests that are year-round and they stick around. And so what we did is we took the normal budget during their on-season, took that into their off-season, utilized that across the platforms that resonated with their clients, right? Some traditional forms, mostly Facebook on the digital side. And we were able to get double the conversions from their last off season and this off season, theoretically, right? And so, I mean, it was just the impact to their business, the looking through the data and understanding why we did that way, why we did what we did, and ultimately how it impacted the results for them. You see a lot of companies just kind of go with the flow, or their advertising agency wants them to spend as much money at once as possible. And the way we look at things is if you're growing, we're growing. So we're really only putting, the advertising dollars into a platform that we know is going to bring an ROI. So just some good industry numbers there. At $32 cost per click in an off season for any pest control company was phenomenal. I mean, you're typically looking at $80 to $100.
Wow.
And so some really cool results for them. And they were
per conversion.
What's that?
Per click or per conversion?
Per conversion.
Oh, I'm like, the cost per click seems really high.
Yeah. No, that would be pretty high for a cost per click.
I think about that. The need to do off-cycle marketing. I think that it feels like that what needs to change there is the message. So, I might not want rats to get my holiday down, or to make a cozy rainy weekend a smelly one with something in the floorboards.
Yeah.
But in each season there's something different. Like we've got the mosquitoes and flies and things like that in summer. We've got ants another time of year. We've got rats and things like that through the colder times. Like it does seem like it moves around. We've got spiders. I don't know. I have an active pest control service here. I have a very old house and a lot of like a wooded property, right? So
yeah, well, you make a good point there too, Bill. I mean, I think it's absolutely messaging and creative is, you know, our first step in our process is building out the data side that I just talked a little bit about, the customer insights report. Strategy is going to be very important. So what are the tactics that we now need to employ across the different channels that we've decided we're going to advertise on? But most importantly, probably is going to be your design, right? And your actual, we take the data and that informs the creative. So many business owners we've talked to and very large enterprise companies, they have this, I like to call it the feeling of what their designs should look like, what they like their designs to look like. And that's not what their customers need to see in order to convert. So that's a lot of what we do, is find the actual creative components, the branding. Does the website actually model what the data is telling us their customer needs to see? And then, you know, I think on top of that is a little bit about, you know, just in general, in 09, you know, when we had a pretty large recession, we had some not so great things happen in the economy, right? They did a study, I think it was Gartner, if I'm not mistaken, did a study over the next 10 years. And the companies that reeled back and spend or cut spend completely in marketing, they're either not around today or they've lost considerable market share. The companies that spent the same amount of money or doubled down, in some cases spent more during that time, are flourishing and they captured market share, right? So that's kind of how we talk to our clients about what's going on right now, is that there are a lot of people scared and peeling back, and you know, we couldn't disagree more with that tactic.
yeah, I think it takes something, right? Like when you see some declines, when you're concerned about stuff, you don't want to keep throwing money after the same old things. And but it really is like, it goes to our SWT tool that we talk, the strengths, weakness, trends, which is like a more strategic version of a SWOT analysis. We're like, what are the trends going on, and where should you lean into? Because there's definitely when things move, historical business product services that there's not the same demand for, that aren't as sexy now, but there's interest in something else. If you could figure out, right, how to go where things are going, how to skate to where the puck will be, not where it is now. The Gretzky quote is really that useful thing to think about. That's where, and then if everybody else is peeling back their marketing and sales spend, that's a great time to get more attention.
Right. It can actually be more cost effective in a lot of cases.
Tell us about the furniture retail business.
Sure.
What was
Yeah,
that?
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one because it kind of goes in line with what we were just talking about too, Bill. And they were already, let me preface this, is that in their customer insights report, we saw a high over indexing in direct mail. Think about, you know, there's all these different omni-channel options for advertising, and a large company's typically doing, in our experience, walking into it, a little bit of everything. And we said, hey, look, 70% of your target audience is saying that they would love direct mail and they would respond well to direct mail. And they do across a lot of these other different businesses as well. So what we did there, and we built out something called a digital footprint. So we actually tracked within the different zip codes in those specific markets for them, where are the actual people that are looking for furniture right now, and how do we deliver them a direct mail piece that's short, efficient, has the actual pieces of furniture that they want to see, and then converts. And that's exactly what we did. So we took a Labor Day sale and kind of did a test campaign. We're really big on testing in our company and making sure that, you know, the creative, and, you know, we're putting all our creative through a couple different AI functions to make sure that the colors are right, the sayings are right. Everything emulates what our data is saying that's going to get that customer or prospect, in a sense, to convert. So what we did is, you know, we took a 8-page direct mailer that they had been running previously before us, put that down to 1 page for obvious reasons there. That's a whole lot of paper for someone to look through. So took it down to 1 page. Really, on the design front, we highlighted the pieces of furniture that, based on their digital footprint, we knew they were looking for, so it would resonate with them more when it actually hit their house. And put some urgency in there, because there was a lack of urgency, especially when you're running any type of sale. You want some urgency there. And what that did is gave us $1.8 million in return on ad spend, and it was 23.17 return on investment for what they put into it. And so a huge impact to their business. And now we know, hey, look, this works. And so to this day with this client, we're still running a very large scale direct mail campaign with them, far more than that, right? With a lot better results. And so that's just how the data can impact it, right? Is that before that, they were doing direct mail, but they were probably 50% into Facebook and some digital aspects. And a lot of people would look at us and say, well, hey, you guys are a digital agency, at heart, you're going to push to digital. Not necessarily when the data says go a different direction. So when you follow the results.
I hear three really big things here. First of all is test, right? Jim Collins said bullets before bombshells. Don't put all your marketing budget and everything you can afford into something that isn't proven yet, right? Like, let's get some validation before we throw money at it. And I used to work with a big company there in the sort of pre-web days. America Online, AOL platform was a big customer out in your way. And we would do all kinds of creative for them. And then it might, because of the size of the platform, we could test it, in an hour. But we could throw some impressions behind something like, okay, that version worked and those three didn't. And let's put everything, then we'd run something for a few weeks. And we knew that it was going to work. And I think that is missing again and again. We're like, this should work. This is like, all the ideas here are good. We've tested the pieces, but we haven't tested the finished thing. And then sometimes when you put it together, right, it doesn't work. And I think the other thing that I heard there that I think is really genius is that we tailor and customize the creative. I can remember putting together with a specific campaign, really specific creative that was so good it freaked people out, and we had to dial it back a little bit, right? We knew too well, and then people were spooked by how predictive our targeting was. And we just had to dial back the creative a little bit. But every time we really spoke directly to someone's needs, hey, if you do this, we've got something for you. If you've got this problem, we've got something for you. And it was like right in there, and it was unique and not something they were used to. That worked really, really well. And so if you can really tailor, customize, do multiple versions of things that create that, I think that's really good. And then the other thing I think is being a little bit agnostic about the media selection. For years I got loads and loads of paper catalogs in the mail. Of course, today we don't get hardly any. We get a few circulars and things like that are coming around, but not a ton of printed stuff. But then every now and then somebody throws something printed at me, and I'm like, oh, it's great. If it's something that I actually care about, right, then I'm really interested in it. One of our companies that we work with is a kind of a novel hybrid media company called Navistone. And Navistone does traditional, like, digital marketing, list lookalike, similar audience kinds of lists to and follow on things like you would do for web advertising, but then they'll send you a postcard or a catalog or whatever like that. And that combination of digital plus direct mail media is really a novel kind of thing. And like, if we can bring the best of both things, and then my mailbox is not necessarily filled with things that I'm actually interested in, right? But that's what they do, is really kind of a cool idea. And another place, like advertising, marketing in a off period, you're marketing in an off channel where somebody's not getting something.
Right. Another good example too, Bill, of something like that you were just talking about, right, is we work with a national garage door company. Think about repairing garage doors and replacing them, right?
Yeah.
And their we just did a delivery of a customer insights report in their Colorado market, and they're based in Phoenix. So they were blown away by the differences. And actually in Colorado, there was a high index of dogs, dog ownership, right? And a lot of people would look at that data point and go, okay, that's cool, but it doesn't really help us sell garage doors. But if you're creative, then looks like what those people look like and what they value, which is dogs. And, if your direct mail campaign has some sort of kickback referral program, or hey, you get 75 bucks to your local dog store or Chewy or whatever it is, we've seen that impact a specific market, sometimes a specific DMA, right? which is just how incredible the data can be, especially when you're in a national organization. I mean, you know this as well, Bill, but people are doing the same thing across the entire United States sometimes in these enterprise companies. And it's incredible to me that they've gotten to that size and still market, across the globe the same. It's wild.
Well, that's like a 50s, 60s TV media mindset of like, we're just going to sell Jiffy Pop all over the country. And,
Yeah.
it's an amazing experience, like, that old school kind of thing. And now the need for and the interest in regional brands and localized language and things like that, like we're a vastly different kind of country. What resonates in one part or place is real. I live in San Francisco or outside of San Francisco, right? It feels really different than say the Deep South.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Not the same to live here than it is to be in Dallas or in Orlando. We're profoundly different communities. What plays here, the language, the culture, the values are really different, right? So speaking uniquely to that audience, right?
And that needs to emulate into your advertising too. And I'll tell this story too about a law firm that we worked with out of New York City. And it really is a good outline of that strategy piece that I was outlining. Step 2 of our process, right, is that this law firm was, doing very well, I might add. And all their business was based on referrals, meaning that a tax lawyer that got an interest in a, trial attorney case, pass that on to them, but they want 30, sometimes 40% of the profit on that because they referred it to you, right? So he came to us and said, hey, look, I need to generate my own leads. It's going to profoundly change my business and I want to expand. So what we did, of course, we did our customer insights report always, and we found that 45% of his audience was spending 40 hours or more on the internet digitally, right? Which really shocked him. Not much shocks us anymore after doing hundreds and hundreds of these customer insights reports. But so what we did is we immediately looked at some of the easy things, right? Like the branding of his website. The website was a good website. It had a horrible presence mobile though, which we see often than not. Yeah, the mobile version was just not easy to use, not easy to read. So we initially just flipped that upside down, really fixed that up. Got that into a great place. And then what we noticed is that, the top core values are what we call psychological drivers within his customer base was fairness, equality, and trust, right? And trust being the highest index out of those 3. And we really just rerouted those to testimonials, right? So marketing the testimonials that he already had, utilizing some advertising dollars, but we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just highlighting the connections he has with his current clients, which we knew would resonate with his audience that said, I want someone I can trust. And immediately generated a stream of leads to him, 100% profit, started expanding his business.
A personal injury firm?
What's that?
Personal injury or some
personal
other
injury.
What kind of law?
Personal injury, exactly.
Yeah.
And so personal injury has 3 locations to this day from one when we first started working with him. So just even tweaks like that, I think a lot of people, and unfortunately it's kind of the industry that plays this game, right? But you got to spend more money to make more money. And while I will tell you, there's some facts too. If you want to make $1 million, but you want to spend $500 on an ad campaign, then those things don't match, right? But there are tweaks that you can do, just understanding your customer, redoing your website a little bit, and then ultimately just shifting your creative. And you're not spending much more in advertising dollars. You're just hitting more of your audience and you're creating lead generation out of it. So another really cool example of how the data informed the strategy informed the creative, and then ultimately that creative executed.
Yeah, it's interesting about that. Like we create websites as very often, if they don't have a high degree of functionality, then they're digital brochureware for our companies, and we create them from our own perspective, but not often from the customer perspective. And we don't think about the customer experience, so we review it with a designer vendor on our laptop or desktop and that kind of thing. And then it's not till later that we open it on our phone And mobile first is critical for so many, depending on the kind of thing you're in, that they spend a way more time on mobile devices than they do anywhere else. But like, okay, so when do they come? What are these occasions? What are they looking for? Where are they looking? Where are they sitting as they look at this and think about this? What are they sitting in the doctor's office with a neck brace on?
It's all informed, by the data, and we see it. Websites is one piece of that, right? And we see it even in copy. I don't get involved in many client conversations too often anymore, but the tense conversations I've had to help work through are always based on, I want my copy to say this because I feel very strongly about this, and we have to say, well, hey, let's look at the data. This is how your customer feels. This is what they need to hear in order to convert. It's them, not you, right? And we see that time and time again. Websites, copy, creative, the whole works.
I think the biggest thing for me, so we did our brand and website updates last year, and it's continuing to evolve a little bit, but I found it really helpful to keep getting feedback from other people. I had what we used to say, and then I looked at what competitors said and how they did things. And we looked at story brand oriented websites, and then we got other people to say, well, what do you see when you do this? And we spent some time then revising that till the copy reflected what, and even like after a few rounds, I remember doing one, of my wife, she's absolutely fabulous at busting my chops on all kinds of things. And she's like, okay, but why do I care about any of that's nice for you? And as one of your friends, even, I care about that. But as a customer, that's not, I care about these things. And she listen, I'm like, oh yeah, that's not even on the website. I'm like, okay, that has to go to the front page near the top somewhere. Right away. It's got to hit people. What do they actually care about? They want to know that you can produce results and on a reliable basis. And what kinds of results do you produce?
Exactly.
Well, you have one other, which I think is an interesting company, intersection of two things. Granola is an evergreen kind of thing, but paleo and granola don't necessarily go together. Paleo-nola?
Yeah, you got it. Paleo-nola, a very an organic, paleo-friendly granola company. And they are a great example, actually, of a company that was doing all the right things, growing their company, pretty steadily, but had all their eggs in one basket, as we like to say.
Granola, now with more meat and nuts.
Yeah. They didn't ever share the secret recipe with me, but I did have it. Great stuff, good product. But again, all their eggs in one basket, right? And so pretty much only in Amazon, spending dollars within Amazon, a little bit of Facebook. And then when we actually did the customer insights report, both of those were at number 4 in where they should have been focusing. Number 4 and then I think number 3, right? And Pinterest actually was the largest where their customer, Pinterest. Believe it or not. And so
I might have suspected Instagram or TikTok, but I wouldn't have thought Pinterest.
TikTok was right under there as well. And so again, to grow, and we see this all the time. We see companies grow to 10, 15, $20 million in revenue on like the 4th or 5th best channel for them to be growing on. So again, the data just helps inform, ultimately where you should be. But then comes, the execution. So for us, it really came to, we saw a high level and a high interest in Pinterest, no pun intended there. And so what we did is immediately started an organic presence on Pinterest. We started doing some small advertising. Pinterest is a tricky platform. You can't just immediately go on there and throw a couple $1,000s in there and get conversions right away. There is an organic method to it. So diversified their ad spend quite a bit into some of the other areas that we knew would work. Really focused on the messaging. And for us, it was the big test, right? The big test was Black Friday. And 40% all-time sales record, 40% over their all-time sales record on Black Friday, just by spending ad dollars in the proper space. And yes, that was supported by Pinterest as well. It wasn't all of where all the ad spend was, but it was a portion of it. And to this day, they're a better company. They're more spread out in terms of their advertising dollars. And we see this all the time, whether it's Google or Facebook or any of the platforms out there with an algorithm. And when it changes, if you have 99% of your ad dollars into one of those platforms and it changes, it could tank. And we've seen it. We even worked with a chair company that was similar, 95% of their ad dollars into Facebook. And then Facebook changed and overnight lost 35% of sales. And that's what led them to us, right? And so we see it all the time.
I had a dear old friend whose business was entirely built around Google. And actually there was another business, my old office building, pretty significant thing. I don't know, they probably had 75 people in the marketing department there in our business and the space next to us. And overnight they changed their rules and approaches and that kind of thing. One to do with email, the other to do with the remarketing kinds of sites and campaigns. And both businesses cratered as a result of that. Now the one essentially splintered off, and the other one went very, very small, and then it kind of clawed its way back with a different focus. But both of them really severely impacted by changes in one big thing, because they were consolidated around one essential media channel partner. Both of them, Google. And Google's so big, they could care less. You can't, I mean, if you're spending millions and millions a month, you can probably get somebody on the phone at Google, but you can't get people on the phone or go have a meal with somebody at Google the way you could with other businesses in the vast majority of cases, right?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, we've seen changes in Google overnight. I mean, our team, obviously, we have a strong presence on Google. We do a lot of search. Recently, Performance Max, which is another Google tool that came out, very cool drip campaigns, showing you, leading essentially your audience to the right page on the right website. You don't have much control. It's all AI algorithms that are leading these people to your website or to your product. And things change daily within the Performance Max campaigns. I mean, we've been in there one day, put some sort of target on, and then the next day it was gone, right? So if you're not constantly in there, which a lot of times people aren't, you'd be surprised at what can happen to your campaigns.
Yeah. Let's go through a couple of things in just a second. Before I do that, let me just shout out our producer, Wanda Mitchell, getting our show ready and out the door. My friend and mentor, Vern Harnish, who created the whole Scaling Up and Rockefeller Habits platform to begin with. And then the team at Podfly, who gets our show out the door and distributed each week, cleans up our audio, show notes, things like that. And let me remind our listeners, viewers, that you can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcast, like wherever, but like it and subscribe it, get your notifications there. If you want to send us a note, you'll find info@scalingcoach.com is a good email to use if you've got feedback or if we can help you connect with something. We got programs coming out all the time. I'm leading a boot camp session next week with Vern. We do a couple of those a year at Lake Tahoe. We have, of course, our summits. I've got a intro workshop in San Francisco in person coming up next month. So a whole range of possible things to help you grow and scale your company if you need anything like that. Find all that and more at scalingcoach.com is our website, scalingcoach.com. And if you want to do us a big old favor because you dug the show, give us a review. Platforms like Apple Podcasts really benefit from seeing volume and activity in the review side. That's like, oh, engage people, and they'll elevate us. So that could help us if you want to do something nice for me and for our show. That would be awesome. So some recapping some thoughts here and where to find out more about Brandon's company. Starting with some customer insights is really critical. Developing ongoing tracking of insights, really important. Developing tailored creative, not being stuck to the same old media channels, and testing things before you throw lots of money after it, I think are all critical things. And then the broader mix, not just the media and the paid impressions, but also where people end up, your website, that kind of thing, having all of that stuff work together really well. All really good, solid ideas. Nothing gimmicky there. Good common sense thinking. And probably, though, in our haste, we cut a corner or two, and that can get very expensive. If you want to find out more, Win Big Media is the website for brand and company. Win Big Media, right there on the screen. Yeah, and in the show notes, but not hard to remember, even if you're driving, working out, or whatever it is right now, winbigmedia.com. No tricky spelling there. So you can find him, check out Brandon's company. Thanks again, everyone, for listening, for watching. Till next time, keep scaling up. Bye-bye.